protect your ability to purchase items. But I do envision a day when you convert that back into whatever the new unit of commerce will be in this new world that we will inhabit. And it's not, lastly, on this point, it's not even just for some kind of economic collapse. One of the things I fear more than anything is maybe just a big EMP from the sun that catches a side of the planet and fries all of our electronic circuits, kind of a Y2K type of event, I guess, that never materialized. But, that's happened. There's a record of that type of event happening from the sun. What if you woke up one day and again, had no access to anything other than the cash in your wallet? How would you go to the grocery store and buy things? How would you? Well, you would do it maybe with the stack of physical silver rounds that you have. So anyway, you buy physical gold to protect your wealth, physical silver to protect your ability to purchase things. You trade the paper, getting back to the original question. So here's your 5-minute answer to a 5-second question. You trade paper, and you hopefully stay on top of things enough that you're able to trade out of your paper contracts before that market were to seize, and we'd be forced, and we'd finally find out what would happen when that day comes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Giuseppe, and thank you, Turd. The next question is from Athena.
Hi, Senor Turd.
Hello.
With premiums on Eagles going as high as $4 a coin right now, many believe that they are the safest long-term investment in silver. However, there has been some speculation recently among market observers that as a legitimate form of U.S. currency, Eagles may be more easily subject to confiscation than other forms of silver. Just wondering what your thoughts are on confiscation of Eagles.
I've read a lot of that too. I guess I don't need to preface all this with this is just my opinion, but I always feel like I should. I really have a hard time envisioning a scenario where confiscation happens. Yes, I guess they are technically currency. In the internet age, in this age of information, how the government could get away with confiscating things from, it would be all over if someone would videotape the government coming to your door asking you for, and it would be on the internet 5 minutes later, and then everybody that has any precious metals stored someplace would then be burying it in their backyard. Maybe, and then there'd be a black market. You'd use your silver in a transaction to purchase something, and that buyer would then take it and exchange that for, a cow or something. And it would never get in the hands of. So an edict issued from Washington that says we are, everyone that owns Silver Eagles must turn them in as of, April 30th at midnight. I just can't. I really have a hard time. I can envision a lot of things. I have a hard time seeing that ever happen. Did you have a question about, I'm trying to go back. I apologize. The question, right here, I should read it here.
Well, I think you pretty much answered it, I think.
So anyway, that's just not something I'm worried about. Whether and a premium of $4, 10%, that's not really growing. Even though they're getting harder and harder to come by, because the mint, as you probably are all aware, is not making very many Eagles these days because they can't get their hands on the silver to do it. So I would expect that premium to even go higher. Now that doesn't mean you can't buy, maples or whatever. But I own, for full disclosure, ASEs are what I have. Got them upstairs right now.
Well, you know what? Actually, let's expand the conversation and ask about. Let's ask about confiscation beyond Eagles. Do you see the government, U.S. government or any other government, ever coming in and demanding possession of any metals, gold or silver.
No. Could they? Could they try? Sure. Yeah. If it was the last time, and I'm not, I can't speak well enough to the history, but I know that, people say, oh, in 1933, that's what they did. And well, that was 1933, you could send out a gold confiscation team to every burg and hamlet in the U.S. and confiscate as much as you could, and no one would know it. I mean, there's barely even radio back then. Today, with the internet, they couldn't get away with it. I mean, so anyway, I just don't think it can happen. As a practical matter, I don't think they can do it. Off subject, could the government mandate something where any asset, people are talking about the government might make all IRAs purchase government bonds to create a kind of a false demand. Hey, it's your patriotic, they've done that before. It's your patriotic duty to support Uncle Sam, buy war bonds. I could see that before I could see confiscation of metal.
Okay. Thank you. And I have another question. Now that J.P. Morgan has been licensed by the CFTC to vault silver at its own private facility, there's been some concern that the morgue, J.P. Morgan, will be able to take delivery of its huge short position without actually having physical silver available, sort of a sleight of hand. And since there's no real reason to trust or believe that Morgan will act ethically or at this stage in the game, I'm wondering what effect, if any, do you think JPM's new vaulting ability will have on its continued ability to manipulate the short and long-term price of silver?
I found it interesting that they got approved so quickly. And so I find it more intriguing, not so much on their future efforts to cap price. I find it more intriguing from the aspect of they don't have physical silver to deliver. When I read that story, my thought was they are opening this vault and it got approved so quickly so that they can collect customer silver there and use it to lease out and settle in the physical delivery process. And I still think that that's what they're doing. There have been stories in the last 12 months about, I don't know if it was Goldman or just some of these big banks allowing gold to be used as margin collateral, that type of thing. And that should send a lot of red flags right there, that they're accepting that, because to me, and again, I'm not an expert in all things, but when I heard that, I think of a stock. If someone's going to short a stock, the stock has to be at that brokerage on the company's books to loan to that person to short it, because you've got to have it to sell it, right? Okay. And when you're a stockbroker and you want to short stock for your client, you got to call the stock loan department and make sure they've got it on hand. Okay. Because you're selling it, so someone's going to take it, and that customer that has it is loaning it out. And so when I read these stories in the last 12 months or so about accepting gold as collateral for margin and things like that, that told me that the firms that want that gold, so that they can then utilize that gold and loan it out in the delivery process. And so when I read this thing about J.P. Morgan and the silver, that was the first thing I thought of. Whether it's for them to settle their own thing, I don't know. Maybe it could be. I mean, what do I know? For me, though, I think as a practical matter, I thought the next step will be, it is a place for them to collect and hold their own customer silver, which will allow them to facilitate silver deliveries. You saw it. There was a very interesting story. This is one of the fundamental reasons why silver went up well over $1 yesterday, was the Scotia Makata story. Did you guys see that?
I did not see that.
Turd, is that the story that was broken in Zero Hedge that you're discussing?
Yeah, that Harvey Organ noticed it too. This big movement of 5.2 million ounces of silver, which is a lot. I mean, what's the world produce? 8 million? I'm sorry, not that many, but I mean it's a lot.
When you say movement, you meant the conversion from registered to eligible?
Yes, exactly. And it was just a thing that they did on their books. But as I understand it, what they had 5 million ounces in the classification under which they had it, made that, and again, the terms are kind of funky. But that silver, that 5 million ounces was eligible to be used, leased out, loaned out, to be used in the delivery process. Okay, which is coming up here in the May delivery month. All right, so Scotia had this 5 million ounces, and if J.P. Morgan needed to settle 100 contracts, make sure I'm doing my math right, that's 500, no. Yeah, that's 500,000 ounces. They would use that silver of Scotia's was there for them to access. And then JP would lease it, deliver it, and then if I understand all of this right, which no guarantees I do, JP Morgan would be under obligation at some point to give that back to Scotia. So that was 5 million ounces that were there to be used in the settlement process. And what Scotia did is they reclassified it and moved it into I can't remember what the term is, but now it's not eligible anymore. Okay, they said, hey, we're going to keep that. We're not putting this out there to be used. We're keeping this on hand to ourselves. Effectively eliminated. I can't remember what the number was. 13% or something of what is thought to be there.
25%.
Yeah, it's big. I mean, that's big news. I mean, I was, again, make it sound like I talk to Mr. Hyde every day, but I'm remembering the conversation I had with Mr. Hyde, my buddy, yesterday. That may be the Franz Ferdinand, Archduke Ferdinand moment, if you will. We look back now at the guy in Tunisia that set himself afire because he thought he was being subject to injustice. And that one event led to the ouster of whatever he was, the king of Tunisia or whoever he was. And that has led to the events in Egypt and Libya and everywhere. That one guy. And we look back on it now, 90 days hence, and that was the moment. Now, at the time, we had no idea. I mean, it was just this guy that did that. It's tragic. But we can all look back on it now, just like the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand. Well, this Scotia thing it has the potential to be the thing that, we look back come July, which is the next delivery month of silver. And if it silver's at $75 and everybody and their brother is concerned about the viability of the COMEX and will it default, and it is defaulting, we may look back and go, that right there was your sign that there was serious trouble. It may be nothing.
But it kind of jives, Turd, with University of Texas asking for delivery of gold and maybe further companies asking for delivery of gold. So it kind of jives with that as well.
Could be true. And that could be the same case. Because again, if someone, I mean, look at it as a legitimacy thing, I guess. If another massive holder of gold were to look at that as an eye-opening thing and say, well, geez, Texas people, they seem like they're pretty normal. I wonder maybe this isn't a big conspiracy theory gold bug issue. Maybe there's something to it. Maybe I ought to get my hands on our gold too. And somebody else demands $500 million worth of gold, and somebody else demands $1 billion worth of gold. I think